Scrap wood ornaments. This is a super fun project. It's a fun and easy project and a great way to utilize scrap wood. So the possibilities for the shapes are endless. You know, go online, find some pictures, print them out, and then you go from there. But what's great about this project is it utilizes scrap wood. So woodworkers, we always like to hoard our woods, especially the good stuff, but sometimes it's super thin, like we would normally chuck this. This won't work for a cutting board. However, with these ornaments that are so thin, you can really utilize all those thin pieces. And so you can get some really cool patterns, all sorts of possibilities. With this project, it does require one tool that you may or may not have. So it does require either a scroll saw or a bandsaw. And if you don't have one, they're actually not outrageously expensive. You can get a scroll saw. I got this one for 50 bucks at a garage sale. And you can actually find these online, classifieds, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, that's still a thing. Whatever classifieds, you can find these old scroll saws and they work great. You could get, you know, I think like the cheapest one, 110 bucks for the Wen. You can find that on Amazon, and that's decent, right? Not for, you know, the crazy intricate scroll work, but not too bad for a new tool. If you don't already have a bandsaw, bandsaws are amazing for so many applications in woodworking. This is a Wen. It was like, you know, $220, $250, which, you know, isn't outrageously expensive. It's not too bad. And with a bandsaw, if you get a really thin blade, you can actually do some scroll work. So a thin blade can do a lot of the intricate patterns, or you can do a scroll saw. So you are, to make these shapes, you know, you don't want to take a jigsaw and get all like sketch with it. One of these tools, you can pull it off. So maybe it's a good excuse to finally, you know, get one. All right, anyway, these are my steps, how I make these ornaments. They're pretty fun, so check it out. But wait, there's more. Not to upset the purists out there, you can use a coping saw, so it's just a hand tool. But if you're gonna batch out a bunch, I would definitely go for one of the scroll saw or the bandsaw. All right, now check it out.
All right, so first step is actually to mill the wood. That's not seen here. The steps for milling the wood, it's the same you would do for a cutting board. You can check out my cutting board 101 video for more on that step. Really important that you've surfaced your sides so you're ready for a good glue up. But take your scrap wood, take, you know, whatever wood you used, and just start playing around with the patterns. It is important to have an idea ahead of time what size you want your ornaments. So whether you're using a paper template or like a cookie cutter, just kind of get a feel for how wide you want these little glue ups. And then just play around with the patterns and just be asymmetrical, symmetrical, get a splash of color however you want. And then you're gluing it up. So again, it's similar to a cutting board. Here, these are so thin. I just took, you know, some 4x4 and some blue tape and just, you know, went to town. You can use all your clamps on this one. So this is really where a woodworker can never have too many clamps. This is great for especially your smaller ones. If you have a bunch of those Harbor Freight clamps, that's awesome. This is a great application for those. If you want to do cauls just to make sure that they're level, especially if it's a thinner piece, you can do that. But yeah, here you can see plenty of clamps, lots of glue ups. Titebond 2 is fine. You don't have to worry about water for these.
All right, so again, similar to a cutting board, once you get it all glued up, you need to make it flat. So flattening, easiest way, send it through a planer. If you do not have a planer or a drum sander, you could just use a belt sander. A belt sander, any handheld sander, probably a little bit more work, but that's fine, right? These ornaments, you want them to look handmade. You don't want them to look like they were made in a factory. So just get it nice and flat, and then once it's flat, you can do the next step, which is adding the actual shapes and outlines. All right, it's flat. So once it's perfectly flat, you're good to go. How I like to apply my templates is I like to use blue tape. So you just lay down your blue tape and you rock some spray adhesive. And then I just do, you know, just a Google search for just different silhouettes and outlines. And then I use the spray adhesive and then I fit them in wherever I want. You could trace it out with a cookie cutter or do another approach. But this is how I apply my templates for ornaments.
Okay, so once you got that blue tape down, throw down some spray adhesive. Just a light mist, and then position your templates accordingly. Just be aware that the spray adhesive is a little tacky and overspray, you know, if that's an issue in your workspace. Sometimes I'll go back to the printer, the computer, and just resize my images just to make sure I can fit everything just so. But it's kind of like a puzzle. It's kind of fun here. And then just cut them all to rough shape. That makes it a little bit easier at the scroll saw or the bandsaw. And then you're good to go. So with the bandsaw is great for straight lines. It's great for, the stars, the trees. You can make really, really quick work of those. You can switch out to a thinner blade and do some scroll work. You'll just have to do relief cuts. So you definitely could do all the ornaments with just a bandsaw if you have one of those thinner blades. With all tools, but especially with the bandsaw, just be really careful. With the scroll saw is awesome. So if you haven't used one before, I do recommend trying to find a used one and have fun scrolling. It isn't as difficult as it looks. You can get pretty good pretty quick. And so you can do some really intricate shapes with it. So check out some videos on scroll saws, and maybe this is gonna start a whole new thing for you. But go ahead and peel off the template, peel off the tape, and you get to see all that cool grain. So this is a fun step in the process. It's like, opening all these presents and seeing what the colors look like. I mean, yes, I could flip it over, but it looks a little bit cooler this way. And so you just pull off all the templates, you pull off the tape, and get a look at the ornaments. And then you want to drill the hole. So you could just use a hand drill. You don't have to have the drill press for this. Just take into consideration, how do you want the ornament to hang on the tree as far as where you position it with weight, depending on the shape of your ornament. Sanding, this is a great unit to have. This is the Harbor Freight belt sander. It's under $50. With a coupon, you can get it a lot cheaper. The reason I say that, I did ornaments one year without it, and it just took forever to sand. So this does help. You're still gonna have to do hand sanding, but it helps get in those nooks and crannies, and it helps. You can also just take your orbital sander and throw it in your bench vise. If you invert it, it works really well. Make sure you're using gloves, because that sandpaper does bite. For me, I do 120, 150, 220 for my ornaments. That's all I need for sanding. But you can see those little orcas swimming their way on down, and the vibration of the belt sander, the orbital sander on the bench. Fairies coming as well. All right, hand sanding. You're gonna have to do a lot of hand sanding just to make it feel just so. Maybe you can make some sanding sticks with spray adhesive and sandpaper, but you gotta get it all sanded up, and then finish time.
All right, so when it comes to finishing the ornaments, a lot of options. The problem is when you got, all these different grooves and stuff, you probably don't want to do a film finish. If you do a poly or an armor seal, you're going to have to do a coat. Then you're going to have to sand it again, do another coat. You're probably going to have to do 2 or 3 coats. So you could do that if you're a glutton for punishment. You could do a spray lacquer, just kind of build up those coats, and then you'd have to do a little bit of sanding, or shellac. It's similar. For me, I just went with Walrus Oil's cutting board oil, because there's some waxes in there. I would probably recommend maybe a Danish oil, a walnut oil, just an oil. And over time, so this is one from last year, it's still great, right? It's still awesome. You just might have to explain to whoever, the recipient or the customer, that, hey, you might have to maintain it to bring back that look. You could do Odie's oil or something like that, where you buff it in, but my best recommendation would probably be doing oil. So for my purposes, I did call it cutting board oil from Walrus Oil. So this is how I finished mine.
So easily the most satisfying part of the whole project, the most rewarding part, is finishing. So especially if you use some pretty cool wood with some great wood grain, it just is incredible to see those natural colors come to life. What's cool about this project, it utilizes scrap wood. Now obviously I used some wood that wasn't scrap wood, but if you just have a really nice piece of figured wood, like quilted maple, like you can see in that Star of David there, if you don't have a lot of it, you can just put a little bit in there, and that pop just really makes the ornament stand out. And these are fun. It's going to be a prized possession for a family member or a recipient, and it goes up on their tree each year. Just super fun to think about. So you're just applying the oil. This is pretty straightforward. Again, kind of like a cutting board. You don't need a ton, just a little bit, and then let it sit. So I like to just throw it out here on this just painter's paper, and just kind of look at all these beauties and take them in and just let it sit overnight. That's enough time, and then dry them off, buff in that wax, add some string, and voila! Look at them. So they really do stand out really nicely on a tree, and just really happy with how these are. Pretty fun. Consider subscribing if you want to see more projects like this, see some more sawdust shenanigans, some more ideas of the working of wood. But hopefully this inspires you to make some fun ornaments. Take care.